It's the Motherload. We're back. Lauren Crocker, glad to have you back on board from 96.3 WDVD. I'm Marie Osborne at WJR. Moms, professional moms we are, so we want to talk about it.
I don't know if I'm a professional mom, but I'm a
Yes, you
mom that
are.
has a profession. There's a difference.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess so. I guess that's true.
We're
I'll give you
so
that.
happy for our episode today. First of all, we have a little family vibes going on. I'm so
Yeah.
excited to talk to your daughter.
Yeah, she's going to be joining us because we're going to talk about adult kids. What happens when adult kids get out and get their real world jobs? How much parental guidance or familial guidance do they need? We're also going to throw a mic behind our director, in front of our director and our producer, Beth Ann Long. She's got her big person job with us here at WJR. She's going to talk about her perspective as well.
Awesome. Very cool.
And talking about bullying.
And we're going to have Dr. Adele Cadieux, Dr. Adele Cadieux from Corewell Health. She's a pediatric psychologist. She's going to help us through any tips and help that you might need as a parent with a kid going into school and all the bullying that's going on right now.
Yeah, because that bullying, you know what, Lauren, I think it lasts a lifetime because we see
Agreed.
bullying even in the workplace. So if we can if we can cut it off at the pass, that would be a great thing. Stay with us here on the Motherload. We will be right back.
All right, we are back with the Motherload. I am Lauren Crocker.
Marie Osborne.
And we have a very special guest on with us right now. And we're going to talk about something that is, it's prevalent all the time, but I feel like especially lately with back to school.
Oh, yeah.
Dr. Cadieux. Dr. Cadieux works with Corewell Health. She is a pediatric psychologist. Doctor, are you there?
I am. Thank you for having me.
How big of a topic is this in your practice when you talk about bullying? Whether it's the child, whether it's the parent, whether it's the teacher, how prevalent is this?
So bullying is occurring everywhere in all schools. And one of the things that we've seen in the research is that it's been pretty steady across the decades. And so it's not going away. And the other thing is that cyberbullying has been increasing over the years. And so we need to really be careful and be mindful of, what our kids are doing online.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that, doctor, because so many people I hear talk about it's bullying is so much more prevalent now that we have phones and cyberbullying, but it was around when I was in school in the late 80s, 90s, but it was just different. And now it's like it's not that it's gone away or it's not that it's getting more. We just have new methods of how these, unfortunately, kids and adults can do this to other children.
Right. And just how the bullying is delivered actually to the victim, right?
Yeah.
Yes. And so, here in Michigan, we have, a process called, place called OK to Say, where kids can send in tips about bullying or any other forms of violence. But bullying is the leading tip that they receive. And already like this calendar year, they've received over 1,400 tips, which is a lot when you think about, obviously not every bullying incident is getting reported. So it's definitely still there. It's definitely occurring. And it's occurring at all levels, from elementary school on through high school and into adulthood.
So when we let's talk about the cell phone and the electronics involved in bullying. So as a parent, let's say you've got a child in later, maybe 7th or 8th grade or maybe high school. Do we take their phones away from them? We can't do that. What do we need to do as parents?
Yeah, taking the phones away probably is not going to be the best fit for eliminating bullying. It's probably going to create more problems than resolve. And so instead, it's just being very aware of what social media your kids are using, helping them to know how to navigate in those social media platforms so that they can block bullies, so that they can report bullies, and really having that open communication with your child so that if anything is occurring, you can help them address it.
Right. And this is actually a question for me. I'm asking you, doctor, because I have a 4-year-old son. I have a 2-year-old daughter, but it's really about my son. So he's still in preschool. And, we're playing at the park one day and he's 4, he's a toddler, and he and some kid get into it. I don't know what the genesis of the argument was. All I know is that I saw my sweet little baby boy push this kid to the ground. And I was, number one, shocked. But number two, I'm like, well, what do I do in this moment? He's 4. Like, we haven't even mentioned the word bullying around him. Is he being mean? Was he defending himself? Does he even know what just happened? So parents in my situation where our kids are young, but not too far from elementary school, like, what kind of conversations are we supposed to have with our kids about that?
Yeah, and so definitely kids that are that young, a lot of their emotion gets expressed in behavior. And so it's not unusual for them to use kind of that pushing when they're upset. But you're right. As a parent, we want to teach them. And that's a great opportunity for a teaching moment of sitting down and saying, hey, I can tell you were really upset about what happened and what can we do differently, so that we can model and help him to begin understanding other behaviors that he can do when he's upset. Because something happened. Something obviously upset him, probably something upset the other kid, and that's why this occurred. But we've got to help them use their words to begin communicating what they're feeling, what they need, instead of the behavior or using our body to communicate it.
Yeah. We're talking to Corewell Health pediatric psychologist Adele Cadieux of the Helen DeVos Children's Hospital, talking about bullying at all ages. And doctor, I just want to go back to something. Well, you brought it up with Lauren in her question about communicating, but you also brought it up earlier for older kids, who might be bullied. And as a parent, you need to establish open communication. That is so much easier said than done. I had read an article that said, as parents, we often thought that using timeout was a good thing. Like, you've had a behavior, you need some timeout. But I've actually read that is not a good thing because it teaches kids, okay, you just got to keep what's going on inside of you to yourself and go sit there in the corner. I don't want to hear it. And that open communication has to start then. So you were just saying, Lauren could have sat down and said to her son, okay, I understand you were upset. Tell me what was going on. That should start then.
And recognize as parents, obviously at 4 years old, they're not going to be able to communicate very much because they're not able to have, they don't have the vocabulary to really express everything, but they can say things such as, well, he was on the swing and I wanted to be on the swing, or he took the toy I wanted to play with, or whatever it is. They can usually communicate some aspect. And so being able to have those conversations can be really helpful. And it is hard. It's hard to know what to say. And as parents, we all will make mistakes. So let's just put it out there that there's going to be times where you say the wrong thing, and that's okay too, because we're all learning. And we can show our kids that we also learn too through our mistakes.
Yeah, and parents judging other parents. I mean, that's the other thing
too. Yeah.
You always feel like you're not doing it right. And I feel like with parents today on social media, it's not bullying by any means. I would never classify it as that. But I always tell my friends, like, my mom algorithm is speaking to me. And it's like whatever decision I made that day, I get some kind of social media account on Instagram that's like, well, we don't do timeouts anymore. We do time-ins. And I'm like, great, I just did 3 timeouts. So I'm ruining that. Like you're questioning yourself with every step of the way as a parent. And that's why these conversations are so tricky, but they're also so important to the kids.
Oh, can we talk a little bit about the judgment part of this? Because, I have adult children. Lauren is at the other end of the spectrum, but I have adult children, and I'm always judging myself. And I'm always worried that somebody else is judging my mothering skills. The old adage, always blame the mother. Whenever there's something, always blame the mother. So can you talk a little bit about that, how we should be nicer to ourselves as mothers?
Well, I think you just said it right there. We do need to be nicer to ourselves. We need to recognize as parents that we are not perfect. So as a parent, we're not perfect. Our children are not going to be perfect. We are here as a parent to both learn what to do as a parent and to grow with our child and to help our child to grow. And so we got to give ourselves a little bit of grace. And honestly, when we make mistakes, letting our children know and saying, you know what, when I did this or when I said that or when I used a really, loud voice, that probably was not a good decision on my part, and I'm sorry about that. So apologizing to our kids actually can be a very beneficial thing because we're modeling appropriate behavior. We're helping them to see that, oh, when you make a mistake or when you do something that maybe you shouldn't have done, here's what you can do. You apologize, you try to make it better.
Yeah.
And so that's how we can kind of take some of that judgment off of our shoulders, is recognizing that even with our mistakes, we're still teaching. We're still helping them to learn as long as we continue to, look at it from that perspective of I'm learning too.
Mm-hmm.
We're almost out of time, but I always like to ask people like you at the end of our interviews, what can parents listening to this right now or grandparents listening to this right now, what's the one thing they can do today to help their child deal with bullying?
Yeah. So I would say that we need to really look at opening those conversations, asking who their friends are, who they like to spend time with, and really promoting those social relationships, because having that positive social engagement is really important. That's where we can really help build our kids up. Every child is unique and special, and they have their own strengths and talents, and we want to, as parents, as caregivers, as family members, to really build on their strengths and talents. So that is the thing that all of us can do today, is really focus in on what is it that is amazing about your child.
Yeah.
And
Always
they
remind
are
them they're a
amazing.
good kid. I've always heard that
yes.
one. Always remind them they're a good kid, even after they
Done something.
get in trouble
wrong,
or,
right.
yeah, you're a good kid.
Yeah.
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 I
And
like
as
that.
adults, we can remember that too.
I know, right? You're a good kid, Marie.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Doctor. This was so enlightening, and I'm sure it's going to help tons of our listeners and our viewers. Just thank you so much for what you had to say today.
Oh, you're welcome. So nice to be with you.
And we'll be back here on the Motherload. Stay with us.
We are back with the Motherload with Marie Osborne. I am Lauren Crocker. We were just talking to fabulous Dr. Cadieux from Corewell. She is a pediatric psychologist, and kind of on the same vein. We didn't get to talk to her about this. I would love to hear her thoughts.
Get her
but
take on this.
I can't wait to get your thoughts, Marie. And our producer and director, Beth Ann Long, is talking with us on this as well. You've heard of the doc. Maybe you've seen it on Netflix. Couple spoiler alerts here. However, it was a news story that actually happened in this state. So you probably know what went down. I'm talking about Unknown Number, the high school catfish. The documentary that rocked my world. I watched it by myself, and then I made my husband sit and watch it with me the next day. And he does not like true crime. He's like, I'm bored with it. Is that you too?
I was just going to say, I made my husband watch it that night, and he hates all that stuff. I live for it because I'm in news. And I just said, no, you really have to watch this.
Yeah. And my husband, Michael, is researching the story as we watch. That's how deep into it he got. But I mean, just an incredibly disturbing true story of the way that a woman, again, spoiler alerts, but the way that a woman catfished her own high school daughter and her friend group for almost 2 years and finally got caught by the FBI. I mean, the damage that I feel has been done to not only this daughter, but the family, the town. It's insane to me that this actually happened.
Yeah, let's talk about the victims first. I always like to do that first because there are victims here. Her daughter was a victim. I hope she's getting professional help. And there were other students involved in this. There were other students. Now, I'll never forget one of the girls who, because they were trying to figure out who's sending these horrible messages to these kids. There were over 700 pages of these disgusting, despicable messages sent.
Text messages.
Yeah. So they were trying to figure out. So a lot of the parents were like saying, I have to talk to my child. Maybe it's my child. And I'll never forget one girl saying to me that her parents, were yelling at her, if it's you, you better say it now. Say it now. And that's affected her relationship with her parents.
Well, and the whole thing of that, the FBI was the one who finally cracked the case. The local authorities didn't have the technology for it.
Exactly.
Which means this woman went to such great lengths to do this, to get the IP address, to do the whole thing. I mean, talk about premeditated, just absolute digital torture.
But she had a tech background.
She did.
So it wasn't like one of us. I mean, she had a tech
but the
background.
fact that she could, get the local authorities and all, and she was in the school too, trying to figure it out. Air quotes.
Yeah, who's doing this? So, I what I walked away with on that whole thing. To me, this is just a case of deep mental illness. And the ramifications of deep mental illness. The terminology Munchausen by cyber was mentioned in this, and also on an article that I read about it as well. Munchausen by proxy is when a mother or a parent makes their child ill and you're always rushing them to the hospital. This is so you can come in and be the savior, be the hero, and you got a lot of attention this way. So that this is just like an interesting turn that now people could be using this if they have that need.
She wanted her daughter to need her so much and be so dependent on her that she actually created this terrible situation. And I have to talk about the father in this case. I thought he was such a hero in the way that he handled it. I mean, talk about keeping your cool and just being very measured in a really wild. I mean, he found out so much information about his life in the matter of 15 minutes.
Oh, so much.
That
His wife had not worked.
Yeah.
I mean, their finances were in shambles. My only question about the dad is, why he could have been asking some, and again, not blaming the victim, but he could have been asking some questions like when they had been foreclosed on, I think a couple of times and evicted. I mean, that he wasn't asking her. She took care of the money and the bills. That's okay. But then didn't say, hey, you know what? Can you let me know what's going on here?
Yeah.
What's happening?
Yeah.
So, Beth Ann, what did you think about just overall the whole thing?
I thought it was crazy, especially I went to high school during just the surge of technology. Like, I was in high school from 2016 to 2020. So, like, I watched people get cyberbullied. I witnessed it. So, to think that a own mother could do that to her kid is just, like, unimaginable to me. Like, whatsoever. I did not see that coming at all.
Well, and we saw in this documentary, and sadly, you see reports every day that this bullying has serious ramifications and serious impacts up to a child taking their own life.
Well, in this story, the mother told her daughter, why don't you just take your life?
Right. Like, like you said, Marie, the only thing that could explain it for me is a mental illness of some kind. I can't imagine any person in their right mind wanting to do this to another person, especially a mother to a child. When you were in school, Beth Ann, because you mentioned it, did you have kids in your circle, or was this happening? Was this rampant, or was it something that would be sporadic?
I would say sporadic. I would feel like in middle school it was a lot bigger. I feel like when the rise of cyberbullying was really going on for my generation. And like we had the whole like Gossip Girl craze, if you guys have ever seen
Mean Girls.
that.
Oh yeah.
Yes, and Mean Girls. So like we had high school like Gossip Girls going around like doing cyberbullying.
Oh really? Just like the show?
Just like the show. Yeah.
Wow.
Yes.
Because I used to watch the show and I found it entertaining, but I didn't realize it was happening in real life.
It was like one of my favorite shows ever, and then it came to my high school. So
really? So somebody would be telling stories about something going around in the school and nobody knew who it was. And
yeah. So our school got involved very quickly. I will give props to my high school and my middle school. They were very on top of cyberbullying. We had just presentations on it all the time because we did have situations like that in our school where it got bad. So it was very nice to see the education system get on top of that because it is a serious issue.
I can't imagine the shame that the people getting those messages must feel. I mean, first of all, you're a young person. You don't have all the tools like we do as adults to go. That's baloney. I don't even know
if I have the tools.
I was going to say it would be hard as an adult, but certainly as a youngster, you don't. I mean, and I call high schoolers. They're young. You're still learning. So I can't imagine the shame.
No, and it's hard too now, especially because obviously in older generations, if you get bullied at school, you can just go home and forget about it. Where now bullying follows you to your house, to your bed. Like, it's always on your mind because it's right there on your phone.
And we were discussing that with the doctor. It's not that it's gotten worse it's just that it changed. Bullying has changed. And it's something that, like we saw in this documentary, the school has to be involved with, and then the families, and then the other students. It's like a team effort here to try to figure out the root of it and to try to just like get it out as fast as possible.
I was astonished, though. I'll be honest. I mean, the FBI really became the heroes in this story because, again, they had the technology to get to the nitty gritty of who was sending. They had the IP, they could do the searches. But I didn't think the local police really kind of, I mean, we're talking 700 pages.
I know.
I mean, that should have told them there's a real sick person here that we need to identify and get some help for and I just didn't think they acted on it.
Well, and it's a good point, Marie, because they could have called in the FBI a lot sooner than they did.
Exactly.
If they knew that they weren't the ones to take issue with it. And in such a small town, it's like, what else big is happening here besides this? So why can't we put all of our efforts plus call in people that know more than us sooner? Why let it go on for so long?
Yeah, and the impact again. I also wonder, one of the big things is how do their lives go on? How do these kids' lives go on? And as parents and as grandparents and caregivers of kids, how do you help them to come to terms with what's happened so that they can live a full life past this?
Well, I think I read in an article that the daughter in this situation, still, I don't think she sees the mom now, but she has interest in having a relationship one day.
Well, what's interesting about this Netflix documentary, and by the way, it's like in the top 10 and has been for weeks. One of the interesting things was, because I'm sitting there, I kind of knew ahead of time someone had said something to me, so I kind of knew that it was the mother when it started, and I kept thinking, that can't, I must have misheard. That can't be the mother doing this. But indeed it was. But one of the interesting things was that the documentary makers had interviewed everybody. They had all their B-roll, all their shots, everything. And they had kept asking the mother, will you be a part of it? And she kept, no. And finally at the end, she agreed to it. And she said the reason she agreed to it was because she wanted her daughter to know her side of the story and know that she loved her daughter.
I'm sorry. That's not love.
She has some really skewed idea. Now, she did mention, although I didn't think this was very fulfilling, it didn't tell us a lot about what went on in her life. Apparently, she had been raped as a youngster and all that.
Right.
So, I mean, she had issues in her life.
Yeah.
But that's like bullying on steroids.
Yeah. Just hopefully that all the victims are okay and are able to move on and find some kind of peace, get the therapy that I'm sure they all need.
Including the mother.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure that's happening. You're listening to the Motherload with Lauren and Marie. Generations of wisdom, wit, and what now moments. We'll be right back. And we are back with the Motherload with Lauren and Marie. Generations of wisdom, wit, and what now moments. We're going to talk about adult kids now.
And that's your wheelhouse, Marie, because you have adult children and wonderful children, as I always hear you talk about them.
They never do anything wrong. But Lauren, you'll be there soon enough. We're so happy to welcome my daughter, Domenique Osborne, to the show. Domenique Osborne Elliott, we should say. And also Bethingham Long, who's our director and our producer. She's going to join us today, too, because she kind of qualifies to speak to this topic. What we're going to be talking about is adult children who eventually get their big person job in the world. This is where their life work is going to be. How much parental guidance do they need? How much hand-holding should we just sit down as parents and let it go? This is what we're going to be talking about.
Yeah, and Domenique, hi, thank you for being here, by the way.
Of course, my pleasure.
Okay, scale of 1 to 10. Is mom giving you the best career advice?
Oh my God, growing up in a household with a mom who was so smart and talented and successful and driven and all of those amazing things taught me to be that way. Like I never questioned like my strengths in the workplace because like I got to see that growing up. I got a really incredible model, which is so awesome.
Aww.
And you should tell people what you do for a living, Domenique.
Yeah. So I'm an advertising creative director, copywriter. So I always knew I wanted to be a writer. I definitely inherited my writer creative brain from my mom. But you don't want to be exactly like your mom. So I knew journalism wasn't totally right for me. So I tried a few things and landed in advertising, and I just love it. So I've been doing this for almost 20 years, which is very hard to say out loud, but it's true.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
And you must just be so proud, Marie. I mean,
Oh, we are. We
yeah.
are. But, the worry never stops, right? I mean, we're always, worrying about her. My husband and I were always asking her questions, and then we talk about it when she's not on the phone going, I don't know, do you think that's okay? Do you think she's okay? That we always do that. We want to bring in Beth Ann Long. Beth Ann, tell us just briefly what you do here and how long you've been out of school.
So I'm a producer here at WJR. I handle JR Morning, so I'm here bright and early doing that from 6 to 9. And I originally started here in digital doing like anything on the website. And I've only been out of school a little over a year and a half now. So I am like a baby compared to your daughter.
But here we're going to get a great perspective then here.
Yeah.
Beth Ann, how much input do you like from your parents, your mom and your dad?
I lean on my parents a lot. They raised me to be very independent, and I also have very successful parents. So I agree with your daughter where it was a great perspective to have to like see how successful and driven my parents were. So I lean on them heavily when it comes to being in the workplace, but I also got all of the learning skills from them where I feel like they set me up for success right away.
And did they ever give you any kind of opinions or side eye about the career path?
Oh, absolutely. They were like, how are you going to pay for life?
Yeah.
Basically. But they always knew it's always what I wanted to do. I always wrote for our school papers. I was doing photography. I interned at so many different places. So they knew I loved it. So they got on board pretty quickly.
The reason we even landed on this topic, I should explain to folks listening to us and viewing us, is this past week there was an article about the daughter of Candace Bergen and the late Louis Malle, who was a famous producer and director. Her name, their daughter, is Chloe Malle, and this week she was named the head of editorial content for Vogue US, and that is an enormous, enormous job. And Domenique, I know you've kept up on that particular story because you've always admired this young woman. So it got me to thinking. I wonder how much input Candace Bergen had in her daughter's career, and did she tell her, don't do this?
Probably not as much as Anna Wintour. I mean, let's be honest.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
That would be, I'd be more nervous about this career choice than my mom, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But you imagine that she grew up, so sorry to speak over you. You imagine you taught me how to speak my mind, Mom, and now you're hearing it. But no, she probably imagined that the world that she grew up in, being surrounded by this, these elite Hollywood types and like the fashion and all of that. So she was probably steeped in that from a young age. And so I think who her parents were and the worlds that she was moving in from a young age probably really influenced her taste and her style and make her really well suited for this role.
But my question is, how often do you think, we'll start with Domenique, we'll want Beth Ann to weigh in too. How often should parents say, wow, that is just a dumb move, don't do that? Is there ever a place and time where that is okay?
I think it's okay to maybe not obviously you would never say that's a dumb move, but I think to say, is that really the right choice? I mean, Mom, if you remember, like I was a poetry major in undergrad, everybody, like that's what I pursued was poetry. And, but I didn't need my parents to necessarily tell me that wasn't a good idea. Like I figured out myself that I needed to figure out a way, as Beth Ann said, to pay the bills. And so I kind of pivoted into this other way where I could use my love of writing. So I feel like you guys were always really supportive of me, but if things had gotten dire, you would have said, okay, maybe it's time to look into something that will give you a little more security.
Beth Ann, what about you on that one? Is there a place for parents to say, don't do that?
I agree with Domenique to an extent. Like if it starts to get very dire, I feel like that is a point where a parent should come in and be like, that's probably not the right thing to be doing. But I came with two parents who very much wanted you to kind of figure out, okay, that probably wasn't the right thing to do. And they also kind of just had the faith in us of like, I hope I raised you correctly to take the right path. But same as Domenique, I was able to figure out very quickly, okay, maybe this isn't the right thing to do. Maybe I should start to steer the other way. So I think it definitely depends on the situation of when a parent should step in like that.
And that's such a good point, Beth. And I want to ask you, Marie, as Dominique's mom, was there ever a moment where you and your husband looked at each other and, maybe it was when Domenique was in college or had just moved away and you were like, you know what, we did such a great job when she was here that we have faith it's all, it's going to be okay. Obviously, there's going to be missteps and twists and turns, but she's solid because of what happened in the home.
Yeah, you know what? You always have to have that faith. But I will tell you, when she graduated from a very expensive college in the state of Michigan with a poetry degree, I was like, okay, what is she going to do? In fact, she just kind of got a, like a summer job right out of college, a summer type job, just somewhere. And our next door neighbor was in advertising. It was a big local advertising company, and she was an executive there. And I said to her, why don't you go talk to her? She's so creative, and she's got this company. You never know what might happen if you went and talked with her. Like, what do you have ideas for a career? And she did go to talk to her, right, Domenique? And what happened?
Yeah, I did. I went to talk to her, and the women at that agency were just wonderful and nurturing, and I ended up getting a internship with them based on my poetry portfolio, and I did some spec work for them, and that's how I did it. And then I ended up going to graduate school for advertising because I realized in that moment, my mom, I had never thought about advertising. This was the years before Mad Men, before I could idolize Peggy Olson. I didn't really realize what a role, what a job this could be. But yeah, thanks to, our neighbor and my mom's encouragement, I did. And then, here I am now. I still get to write. It's just in a little bit of a different form.
And your mom is always right. That's the lesson there.
Yeah, moms are, yes.
Well, that's true, too.
Now that I'm a mom, I know moms are always right.
Exactly. And I know you have a little one like I do. In the
Mm-hmm.
home. And, are you even having, because I go to bed at night sometimes because I'm an overworrier and overthinker, thinking
Join
about
the club. Join the club.
My little guy is so far away from leaving home, but I'm just like, God, I hope that we have the tools to set him up the right way. Like, I think all as moms, we start thinking about this stuff super early.
Yeah, when
Absolutely.
I remember one time when we have two boys that are younger than Domenique, and one of them was having problems in third grade, and just little problems with third grade. So I went and talked to the teacher, and I remember coming home and saying to my husband, I don't care about third grade. I care about 30.
Yeah.
What is this? And that's
true.
kind of what you've just
true.
verbalized. What does this mean for when he is 30 and what's going to happen to him?
Mm-hmm.
Gosh, I thank you guys for joining us to have just this little chat about adult children and their parents.
We need an after show pod, Domenique, so we can get like the real tea on Marie and,
absolutely.
and all the good stories.
Oh, I did not like the way Beth Ann's eyes lit up on that one.
Absolutely.
Time. I will spill it all.
And next time you're in Michigan, you'll have to come in and
Yes,
join us. That would be so
absolutely.
fun.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that would be a blast. I would love to do that.
And your mama talks about you and her grandson all the time.
Mostly
just
the
like-
grandson. Mostly the grandson.
He's the best. The other day he said to me, we went to a concert together. We went to go see the Boston Symphony play outside, and he leaned over to me and he said, Mama, everyone here thinks you're so cute.
Oh my
That is the
God.
kind of,
Yeah, he's
that
the
is the kind of child he's my tiny little hype man, and I love him more than words can say.
That's amazing.
Beth Ann, thank you so much for joining us. Domenique, thanks for joining us all the way from New
Thank
York.
you.
We appreciate the input.
Yeah, great to talk to you.
And you're listening to the Motherload with Lauren and Marie. We'll be right back. And we are back. The Motherload with Lauren and Marie. We'd like to discuss family size, Lauren.
Yeah, I read an interesting. I hate surveys because I'm always like, who?
There's
are
a
they
million
asking?
surveys.
But it struck me because first of all, I love when people talk about family size and there's a decimal point in there. So I read a recent survey that says family size today. When asked, I think they asked a bunch of people. 80% said the desired family is 2.7 children. So somewhere between 2 and 3, compared to the 1930s when it was 3.6. And actually, that number surprised me more because whenever I think back, I'm like, were they having like 10? I mean, my mom was born in the 50s and she's got 9 brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
Now, it was a blended family, but there were 5 on each. She had 4 brothers and there were 5 kids that got together. So I was surprised that it wasn't like 6.7 kids in the 30s.
But again, this is an average. So,
Right. But I found that interesting, in my parent circles. And we have 2 children with us. We had our son Presley before my son Sly was born. Sadly, we lost him to stillbirth. And my husband and I have had this conversation many times it gets kind of philosophical and deep, but if Presley were here, would we have 3 kids or would we have 2? And it's always an interesting thing. And we kind of always end up like running away from the conversation because we're just like, we're just
So
happy
hard.
with what, we're blessed with what we have. And that's what it is. But I do feel as my daughter, who's 2, and I always feel like 2 is kind of wrapping up the baby stage. And I'm like, I get that itch, but I'm like, is that really an itch? Do I want to go through this again? Do I want to have another baby? Or is it constantly feeling like there's a bit of a void in our family because our son is not here? I go back and forth with that. Now, we're not having any more kids. We think 2 is perfect for us for all the reasons, but it's just something that happens to me. And it was around a year and a half when my son Sylvester had turned about a year and a half that I started having the itch to have my daughter. So it's like around that time.
When you talk about family size, to me, this is almost like talking about religion.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah. Because I mean, it's such a personal thing, and I have no right to judge somebody else for having 10 kids or having 3 kids, or no kids.
Yes.
Because we're going to tackle that subject on this show in the next little bit about people who choose not to have children. And I think they kind of get a short shrift in society. But anyway, I'll tell you a funny story about the number of kids. So we have 3 kids, and like Lauren, we lost our son when he was 28, but we had 3 children. So I remember, and he was the youngest, and I remember when he was about 2 or 3, I said to my husband, maybe we should have another kid. Maybe. Like I'd come across this great idea, right? My husband was not down for that. And if I'd had a 4th child, I would have had to have quit work. There was just no way I could have done all that, right? So I kept, I said, I don't know, maybe we should have a 4th one. Well, it just so happened that a few weeks after this conversation kicked up, his niece, who had an infant, stayed at our house because they needed to go away for the weekend. So this little baby stayed at our house. Best baby in the world. Ate like a champ, slept like a champ.
Right.
He was fabulous. After that weekend, I said to my husband, nope, we're not having any more. It was like that. I just
Exhausting.
I needed to borrow that one baby for a few days. And boy, did that ever
It cured your baby fever.
It just shook it out of me. It just shook it out of me.
No, but it is. And I think it's a biological thing that happens to humans. I mean, if women remembered everything about birth, the chances of them doing it multiple times would be very slim. But what do you remember? The feeling of you meeting your child and this. And I think if families really sat there and remembered it, I think back to those 3 a.m. feedings and am I breastfeeding? Am I formula? Nothing is, and that was stressful. And I did have to put stuff on pause to handle that part of life. And I would do it all over again. But it's like, do I really want to go back to that?
Exactly.
We're at a different stage. Maybe we're meant to be at a different stage. And I also think with this day and age, with so many homes, it's very hard for one parent to stay home these days.
Oh, absolutely.
So,
it's very hard.
like you brought up the point, if we were to have one more, that meant you're staying home. You're putting a pause in your amazing career. You're having that conversation with your husband. When do I get to go back? If you do. It's so much. I feel like the smaller family size just makes sense for so many people today.
Absolutely. And most of my nieces and nephews all have 2 children. Some have 3, but no more than 3. And it's funny because all those families had same-sex children, like they were all boys. So I think they were hoping for the girl on the 3rd try, and it didn't happen. So they ended up with 3 little boys. But so there's a lot of that goes on. But what's funny is when I was growing up, I had a family. They were all big families. I lived in Warren, grew up in Warren, and there were a big Catholic community, so there were a lot of big families. But the biggest family was a family of 12. And they would go to mass in shifts. Mrs. So-and-so would take their 6 kids to one mass, and Mr. So-and-so took them to another. Wow. I mean, it was unbelievable.
It's a business.
It was, and, eventually I went to college with, and eventually became adult friends. We settled in the same neighborhood, and our daughters became friends with a woman who had 16 siblings.
Wow.
And what's interesting about that family is they all graduated college. Many had advanced degrees, and all of them are very successful.
Yeah.
So,
because that's the other thing. As a parent, there are days where I don't feel that I've given enough attention or energy to one of my kids. And like I said, we have two, but one will require a lot more certain days, certain weeks.
Yeah.
And the other one, you're just like, oh my gosh, is my daughter getting the same, toddlerhood that my son got? Because my son wasn't, he was by himself. You have all these. So I can't imagine with 4 and on. I wonder if parents struggle with that.
My husband has 7 siblings. There's 7 siblings in his family, and he was the third one in from the top. And he often talks about, at a very young age, he was having to do chores that had to do with like watching the younger kids and dealing with the younger kids. And so there's a whole family dynamic about growing up in a larger family. I just had 2 older brothers. And so, but that made me tough.
Right.
Because I had to be, these 2 brothers were constantly in my face.
Yeah.
So I had to be tough. And I think that helped in later life too.
And also as the youngest, your parents probably let you get away with more and were less.
I say no to that. But ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the 2 defendants, my brothers, would probably have something else to say about that.
Yeah. Yeah. I grew up in a very different, I always say I had the best of both worlds. I was alone for 10 years. My mom and stepdad got together and they decided to have a baby. So my brother and I are 10 years apart. Oh. So I got a sibling as well.
But he was a toy probably.
Yeah. I was 10. It was adorable when he was first there. But then when I was 14 and he was 4, I didn't want to babysit. I wanted to go to the mall or whatever. So then he became annoyance almost. And then by the time I moved out of the house at 18, when I would come home to visit, he would get upset because he was used to being by himself. And now I'm home and my parents are like making a big deal because Lauren's home, visiting.
Of course.
So now we're adults. We're very tight. He's getting married next month and I love him so much. But we didn't really bond as siblings till we were in our adulthood, like till he was in his early 20s and I was in my early 30s.
Yeah, I was much younger than 5 and 7 years younger than my brothers. So I almost grew up as an only child as well. It was just a very, very different perspective on life and just a whole different dynamic.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but like you said, whatever somebody decides to do, as long as it works for you, your family, like it's a very personal conversation.
Yeah, I'm telling you, it's like religion. Don't go there.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. Always asking, having one more? Did you getting your girl? You gonna get your boy? This and that. I mean, those questions should be. You should get a ticket. Like a fine if you ask a couple that. I'm sorry, because it's just you don't know what's going on.
Let me write that down. We're going to stop. We're going to start a list of family issues, questions that should not be asked. Right at the top there. Are you having another one?
Yeah,
I agree with you wholeheartedly. I wholeheartedly agree. Well, we covered bullying. We covered adult children. We covered family size. Lauren.
Yeah.
Great conversation on the Motherload.
Always.
Thanks. We'll see you next time.
Yep.